What's up, Patriots? Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I have with us Mr. Dave Bouchaw. I am going to ask him a few questions about his military career. So, what made you decide that you wanted to join the military?
Actually, what decided me was that my draft number was coming up, and I was going to be drafted for Vietnam. So I looked at the time and decided, instead of just going into the Army, that I would choose my place that I wanted to go. And needless to say, I did choose the Air Force, and that's what made me want to get involved with, of course, the draft at the time, and of course Vietnam. So, yep.
So after you chose that you wanted to do the Air Force, what was the recruiting process like?
The recruiting process was fairly easy. We had our preliminary physicals in Detroit, Michigan, at Fort Wayne, and then they put us on, of all things, a train, and we took a train for 2 days to finally end up in San Antonio for our basic training. But the recruiting process was quite simple. We had testing, so I knew kind of an idea where I was going to be programmed to go into what field.
So what job did you have, and what was an average day like for you?
Okay, my job, after basic training, we went to school, and I was trained on different type of weapon systems at Lowry Air Force Base in Colorado. We trained on everything from the Gatling gun, the 60mm cannon, to napalm, and finally we trained how to load B-52s with the nuclear bombs. So we had a very extensive training so that we could be used in any area as far as weapon systems on airplanes. And I did finally end up in the nuclear weapon field, and that's what I did. I was a bomb loader. And I was stationed up at Keisler Air Force Base in Upper Michigan, which had a wing of B-52s that were on full alert all the time. And a typical day was, usually if we had an operational readiness inspection, we would have to download the bombs and then move the plane off of the tarmac and then upload to another plane so we could put it back, and we rotated the planes. And it was just, it was a fairly busy day, but it could be up towards to a 24-hour day.
So when you were training, what was your favorite thing to train with?
What was the favorite? People. You become familiar with your cohorts that you worked with, and you developed a camaraderie with the people that you worked with, because you work side by side and you work with them sometimes 24 hours a day. So I think the biggest thing I learned and I developed was the friendship and the fellowship with my fellow workers.
So you mentioned that you sometimes had a 24-hour day.
Yes.
What did you do in your free time, when you did have free time?
A lot of times in our free time, we would go camping. We would do sports. Being that in the Upper Peninsula, we would go a lot of hiking, some biking, just the type of things that just kept you busy. Just normal activities, gymnasium, and movie theater stuff. Just the normal stuff that we do. Yeah.
So I know in the military, some people get to travel. Were you able to travel at all?
Very little. Most of my travel during the time I was in the Air Force basically was at the base, because we had two major incidents happen. I was in the Air Force from 1962, January 62, to January of 66, and during that time, in 1962, we had the Cuban Missile Crisis. And some of the people had to travel for that, but I didn't. We stayed there, and then also later on, when the Kennedy assassination, we were also under alert at that time. But as far as travel, we did very little. about a year. About a year after I was a bomb loader, my commander saw some of my artwork, and he was impressed, and he said, "Did you ever think of becoming a graphic artist?" And I said, "No." And so he said, "Well, I'm going to take you and show you this, the graphic arts section." And he did. And he said, "Would you be interested?" And I said, "Yes, sir." And so for the last 3 years in the Air Force, I spent as a graphic artist working on the base. And I ended up from the major shop into my own little department working for the Deputy Commander of Operations for the last 2 years. So when I got back out and I joined the National Guard, that's what I ended up is in the graphic arts. And in the National Guard, of course, you spend only 1 week in a month, and then of course 2 weeks during the summer training. And I learned every skill in the visual information, and so eventually I became the supervisor of the section. But it was in the National Guard where I did a lot of traveling. We went to many bases. We traveled to Luke, we went to Hickam Air Force Base in Hawaii, we went to Tyndall Air Force Base. I really enjoyed that traveling at that time and seeing the different bases.
So if you could, would you join again?
Oh, in a heartbeat. But I knew that there was a point in life when it's a young man's occupation, and when we were playing war games with the chemical suits and everything, it became very difficult. So the time was there that I couldn't do it anymore, and so I had to leave. And
Is
retire.
there anything else that you would like people to know about your time in the military?
I think the military is a wonderful thing, and I think that anybody that is looking for something that will advance themselves and help themselves, the military is a place to start. It develops your personality, it develops leadership, it develops a lot of things that a lot of people don't realize, especially your ability to, through leadership and so forth. They have one of the strongest programs I've ever seen. One of the things that I do want to expound on is that when I was in, we had a program, it was called the Michigan Freedom Academy, and every year the 11th graders of the school systems throughout the state of Michigan were asked if the students wanted to go to the academy. And the academy brought in individuals from contractors that did military work, and they explained what freedom was. They explained why they wanted military, because of their training, because of their ability to do the job. And I think it was one of the best programs I'd ever seen done